Claude Cowork just hit 80.9% on SWE Bench, the only verified coding score in this matchup, while Manus has 0 published equivalent. That gap decides whether you're paying $20 a month for a proven coding engine or just hoping for the best. Both agents are hot right now, so I'm putting Claude Cowork against Manus across 5 head-to-head tests to see who actually wins. And the one test that could flip the whole decision for cost-sensitive users, it's not the one you'd expect. My name is Brian, and I'm in these tools 12 hours a day, so you don't have to be. Every number in this comparison is traced back to official pricing pages, vendor release notes, or labeled community reports. This is for anyone running real coding or automation workloads and deciding where to put their $20 a month. Test 1, Cost. A solo dev wants to try an autonomous agent before committing to a subscription. With Claude Cowork, that's not possible. The cheapest plan starts at $20 a month, no exceptions. So if you're on a tight budget or just want to poke around before paying, that entry barrier is a real problem from day one. What I found is pretty interesting. Manus has a genuine free tier, 1,000 credits plus 300 daily refresh. No card required. Claude Cowork starts at $20 a month. Full stop. Both hit $20 for Pro and both top out around $200 for high volume plans, so the gap really lives at the entry point. That free tier is real, and it matters. Now, the gap is smaller than it looks once you're past the free tier. Both products land at the same $20 Pro price, and both hit $200 at the high end. Manus's credit system is more granular, which sounds good, but community reports say it can be harder to predict what a task actually costs you. Cowork's plans are simpler, which has its own value. Manus takes cost, and it's because of that free tier. The credit system complexity doesn't cancel it out, because a $0 entry point is a $0 entry point, and Claude Cowork simply doesn't have one. That puts Manus up 1-0 on the scoreboard. Test 2, Coding Benchmark Performance. You hand an agent a real GitHub issue, something with 50 files, a broken test suite, and a deadline. If the model underneath can't actually solve it, you lose hours debugging its output instead of shipping. The SWE bench score is the closest thing we have to a real number on that question, so let's look at what both tools actually show. What surprised me here is how one-sided this is. Claude Cowork's underlying model hit 80.9% on SWE bench verified, which is the first time anyone's broken 80% on that test. Manus, I couldn't find a single published SWE bench score for it anywhere. Their coding claims are vendor published, not independently benchmarked. And that's a pretty big gap in transparency. That said, benchmarks and real-world app building aren't the same thing. Manus claims it can build and deploy production-ready web apps, and that's a different skill set than fixing isolated GitHub issues. Cowork's 80.9% reflects the engine, not necessarily the full harness, so I'd take both claims with a grain of salt until you run your own workload through each. Claude Cowork takes coding benchmark performance, and it's not close. 80.9% versus no published number at all. There's just nothing on the Manus side to compare against. That ties the scoreboard at 1 each. Test 3, Speed. 4 minutes per task is the number Manus is claiming with its 1.5 release, down from 15 minutes. If that's real, it changes the math on how many tasks you can run in a day, and a solo dev shipping fast needs to know whether the agent is actually keeping up or sitting there spinning while the clock ticks. This one is frustrating. Manus 1.5 claims roughly 4 minutes per task. That's vendor published, not independently tested. Claude Cowork has no published speed figure at all. I looked everywhere and couldn't find a comparable number. Community reports mention slowdowns under heavy load, but nothing you can actually benchmark against. So we're comparing a vendor claim to a blank page. Speed is a no-winner call. Neither side has independently tested data. Manus's 4-minute claim is vendor only, and Cowork's speed is just unverified. Can't score what you can't confirm. Score stays at 1 apiece, 1 tied. Alright, so we're tied at 1 each in the context window and deployment tests are still ahead. Context limits decide whether your agent can hold a large codebase in its head, and deployment decides which tool actually fits your setup. So either one of those could be the tiebreaker for your workflow. Test 4, Context and Output Limits. 200,000 tokens is Claude Cowork's confirmed context window. That's roughly 150,000 words of code and conversation the agent can hold at once. If your project is bigger than that, or if the tool you're using won't tell you its limit, you risk the agent losing track of earlier decisions mid-task. And that's a really painful debugging session. Claude Cowork's 200K context is vendor confirmed, and a community blog reports 1M tokens on Pro, though I'd treat that 1M as unverified until Anthropic says it officially. Manus 1.5 says its context is expanded for single tasks, but there's no specific number attached to that claim. So one side gives you a concrete figure, the other gives you a vague promise. Now, the numbers aren't really comparable here, which is the honest caveat. Cowork's 200K is a hard spec. Manus's expanded context is designed for single-task autonomy in a cloud environment, which is a different architecture altogether. Manus may handle plenty of context, but they're measuring a different thing than Cowork is. For a long multi-file coding session, Cowork's confirmed 200K is more useful to plan around. Context is a tie. Cowork's transparency is real, but the architectures are different enough that it's not a fair head-to-head, and neither tool clearly beats the other on this dimension. That's 2 tied now, with the score still 1-1. Test 5, deployment and modality. A knowledge worker who needs to run an agent on a Windows laptop, a Linux box, or a phone on the way to a meeting needs native apps, not just a browser tab. If the tool only works in the cloud with no dedicated client, that's a real workflow constraint that shows up every single day. Pretty clear on the surface. Claude Cowork runs on web, desktop, Mac OS, Windows, Chrome OS, Linux, and mobile. Manus is cloud-based, accessible through a browser, with no dedicated native app. Cowork runs unattended. Manus has persistent cloud autonomy with stateful memory across sessions. Both are autonomous, just in different ways. More platforms doesn't automatically mean better, though. Manus's cloud-first approach gives it persistent memory across sessions, which is actually a meaningful advantage for long-running tasks. Cowork's native apps are great if you need offline access or a GUI that feels like a desktop tool. These are genuinely different philosophies, and which one fits depends entirely on how you work day to day. Deployment is a tie. Cowork's broader platform coverage is real, but Manus's persistent cloud memory is a genuine counterweight, and neither one wins cleanly. That's 3 tied now, and the overall score stays at 1-1. So here's where Claude Cowork clearly beats Manus. It has the only verified coding benchmark score in this matchup, 80.9% on SWE Bench. Covers more platforms natively, web, desktop on Mac OS, Windows, Linux, and mobile. And its 200K context window is a confirmed number, not a vague vendor claim. And here's where Manus clearly beats Claude Cowork. It's the only one with a free tier, $0 with $1,000 credits and 300 daily refresh. No credit card needed. Its Pro plan matches Cowork at $20 a month, so you can try before you pay. And it claims roughly 4 minutes per task on 1.5, which is faster than anything Cowork has published. Overall, this ended 1-1, which surprised me, because the 80.9% SWE bench gap looked like it would make Cowork the clear winner across the board. But cost and flexibility kept Manus in the fight. So here's the rule. If you need a proven coding engine with a GUI and a confirmed 200K context window, go Claude Cowork. If you need a free starting point for multi-domain tasks, Manus is probably enough. If you want to go deeper on the coding agent side, I did a full head-to-head called Claude Cowork versus Claude Code, and it gets into exactly when the GUI wrapper is worth it versus just running the raw model. That one's worth watching next.